It's election season. It's election season now. We will talk about that. What's going on with the government shutdown? Sean Spicer joins us. Scott Perry had the FBI going after him. All that and more coming up on I'm Right. When is the next election? When is the next election? I ask it obviously for a purpose. Consider this my obnoxious get out and vote prompt for you, for me, for everybody. When is the next election? Normally, when people care about politics, they think about the presidency. The White House, after all, everything's about Trump, right? The White House, every 4 years, we vote for president. But that's not how the communist thinks about politics. Why is it, let me ask you this, why is it that the Trump administration, why do they keep running into all these roadblocks when they're trying to get things done? It's this judge, this sanctuary city, that. Why? Because if you think about the United States of America as a huge skyscraper, 50 stories, huge skyscraper. Yes, the top floor matters, the White House, but the 30th floor matters. Second floor matters. You may not have the CEO on the second floor, but the second floor matters a lot. These are all levels of political power. And on the right, we have generally cared about the top couple floors. We don't vote in primaries. We don't vote in local elections. We show up every 4 years, go Trump, and then we forget. Now, the problem with that is the communist doesn't operate in this way at all. I am friends with multiple former communists, and every one of them, to a man, to a woman, says they would spend time on their Secretary of State's website, on their city's website. They would not only know when the next election was in their area, they would disseminate that information to all of their friends. Group text, email, hey, Tuesday, we got a prop coming up. We got to vote for taxes to go up. Tuesday. The communist is, as we speak, he is on the website, on his phone. Oh my gosh, I got to vote to destroy the country. Now, maybe you're thinking to yourself, but I don't live in Virginia, which we'll get to. I don't live in New Jersey. Okay, it's fair. I don't live in New Virginia, and I don't live in New Jersey. And guess what? I have huge elections in my area tomorrow. Do you? I live in Texas. My community itself, trying to think, I think there are 15 to 20 things that will be voted on tomorrow. Tax increases, bonds, bans on this, huge elections that will govern how the state of Texas will go. Where do you live? Do you have elections tomorrow? The last time there was a local election in my area, I showed up to vote. The vote this time was on a Saturday. I want to stress this. This time it was on a Saturday. It wasn't even a Tuesday. I showed up to vote. 2 or 3 old people working the polls, because for some reason those are the only people who work the polls. We have to get better about that. 2 or 3 old people working the polls. When I showed up, not only was there no line, there was no one else in the building. And I asked them, as I always do, how many people showed up today? It counted on 2 hands. Nobody shows up but the communist. Why in your red area? Why is there an LGBTQ parade? I don't understand. It's 95% Republican, because the 5% communists know when the elections are and they show up and vote and they get involved. Get involved. Vote every time. And not just that. Bring your friends. Bring your friends. Now let's talk about the big ones, if you will. The big ones, of course, being we're about to have a new governor of New Jersey. We're about to have a new governor of Virginia. And those races in states that were formerly pretty blue, at least we thought of them to be pretty blue, both those races are in play. How in play is Virginia? We'll start there. Well, they rolled out the tried and true Democrat tactic of dragging Barack Obama out to go campaign for Abigail.
And Abigail doesn't just believe in working with everybody, she also believes, and this is really important, in listening to everybody, whether they voted for her or not. Because she knows that if we want to make progress on the things that we care about. We have to be able to disagree without calling each other nasty names or demonizing each other.
No, listen. I know what you're screaming at the television set right now. I know. What do you? They call us Nazis. Barack Obama calls us names all the time. Look, none of that matters. Barack Obama is famous for that. He was very, very good at that. Always has been very good at that. He campaigns. He gives speeches like a very reasonable, moderate, and then governs like the bloodthirsty communist savage that he is. So set that aside. The fact that Barack Obama is in Virginia tells you Democrats are worried. You don't make that phone call, hey, Barack, could you come help? You don't make that phone call unless you're worried. We have a shot. Will we show up? Winsome Sears, at least from what I can tell, pretty freaking good candidate. United States Marines, she's out there campaigning.
When my opponent says that when it comes to her candidate for Attorney General saying that 2 bullets to the head for his political opponent and that the wife of his political opponent was breeding quote-unquote fascists and that they needed to die too, the 2 children, and all she says is, well, she is disgusted and then she is unhappy. Unhappy, Abigail? Wait a minute. Unhappy, Abigail? About murder? How about you get a backbone and tell him he needed to get out of the race? How about you do that?
We'll see how it turns out. You know what's going to determine it? Turnout tomorrow. Because you know Democrats are going to win the early vote, the mail-in vote. They always do for reasons. Are we going to get up off the couch in Virginia tomorrow and show up and keep the governor's mansion, or are we going to give it away? And as far as Abigail goes, it's just this terrible situation in the country where Democrats have turned Donald Trump into the Antichrist by relentlessly campaigning against him for 10 years. And the result of that is Democrats, just normal Democrats, they believe he is the end of all things, and that no matter what, you have to campaign against him, you have to stop him, you can never work with him, even when it comes to jobs.
You position yourself as a consensus builder, someone who works across the aisle. Would you work with President Trump on areas like job creation?
I think that, you don't work with the arsonist who burns down the house to rebuild it. And in this particular case, the individual who's responsible for an absolute attack on the federal workforce is not the right person to help rebuild our economy.
There you have it. Virginia, you have a choice. We're going to show up and stop her? Or is that person going to be in the governor's mansion? New Jersey, same thing. New Jersey has been trending in our direction. We have people on the ground, Scott Pressler and others, who've been working their butts off, getting Republicans registered. New Jersey citizens are sick and tired of all this woke filth. They want to bring back plastic bags at the grocery store. Jack, Mikey, they're squaring off. We have a chance here to take back the governor's mansion there. Will we show up tomorrow, or is there a ball game on? Again, it matters. Now, those are the ones we're going to win. Or I should say, we can win. Let's hope. Now for the one we're probably not going to win. So uncomfortable. This guy's probably going to be the next mayor of New York City.
I'm from Uganda, but I also grew up in New York. In New York, you don't really, you go out, some guys are very hesitant to dance. If they're not grinding, they're just standing. In Kampala, you will just not fight.
Did you catch that accent? That's weird. He sounds so much different in this video.
I think first, to be clear, coordination with ICE is akin to capitulating to Donald Trump's agenda. That's what we've seen. This is a reckless entity that cares little for the rule of law and even less for the people that it's supposed to serve. And it has transformed the sites of what used to be regular court appearances for many New Yorkers at 26 Federal Plaza into a place where many go fearing that it will be the last time that they'll be standing in their own city. And it is critically important that we have a city that makes clear it's proud of its sanctuary city status.
So you would not allow the New York Police Department to engage or to cooperate with ICE or DHS?
Not in civil immigration enforcement. We have sanctuary city laws, but if you want to pursue your promise to create the single largest deportation force in American history, or your promise to persecute and punish your political enemies, then you will have to get through me to do that here in New York City.
Democrats have a term for that accent thing. They call it code switching. But remember what we talked about? Communists lie about everything all the time. If you are going to lie about how you speak, then you have to come up with a word that's not lying. People don't like lying. You're lying. You don't speak like that. So call it code switching. Makes it sound so much better, right? But hey, New York City has a choice to make too. Zohran Mamdani is going to torch that place. He was asked if he's the future.
Hakeem Jeffries was asked this morning if you're the future of the Democratic Party. He said no.
Good to know.
Do you have a response?
No, I'm focused on the next 2 days.
Do you think you're the future of the Democratic Party?
I don't dare predict the future. That's why I'm out here canvassing to deal with my anxiety to get through the tape of the future of 9 p.m. on Tuesday.
Hakeem Jeffries is a man who sees the national polls. He knows Mamdani's not going to do well in Iowa. Mamdani's focusing on destroying our greatest city. I hope he doesn't get the chance to. Show up and vote tomorrow. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. Now, Sean Spicer can make us uncomfortable because he always gives it to us right between the eyes when it comes to elections. Who's going to win in Virginia? Who's going to win in New Jersey? Is there a chance someone knocks Mamdani out in New York City? We'll talk to Sean Spicer about that in just a moment. Before we talk to Sean Spicer, let me talk to you about putting your money where your morals are. It's been all over the news, Arctic frost. Of course, we're going to talk to Scott Perry, who was a victim of Arctic frost, in a little bit. But, you know, one of the headlines you keep seeing is what Verizon did. Verizon handed over all the information to the communists without a second thought. All your information, location, text messages, phone numbers. Verizon couldn't wait to turn you into the checker. It's time to switch to Pure Talk. Pure Talk has never and would never do such a thing. They are led by a patriot, a Vietnam veteran. They're so American, they hire Americans. They'll charge you less. puretalk.com/JesseTV. We'll be back. Well, as I said, the election day is upon us. It's not in 2028. It's right friggin' now. These are big elections, and you may have one in your area. But to talk about the biggies and what's going to happen and who's going to win, you know who we have to go to. My friend Sean Spicer, host of the wonderful Sean Spicer Show. If you want to get smarter, that's a good place to start. All right, Sean, Trump, quote, unlocks millions of dollars for these races. What do those words mean? How did he unlock it? Were they in a vault?
Yes, and his password is password, which made it a lot easier to get into. So Trump controls ostensibly not just the Republican National Committee by being the current incumbent president, but he also has a massive super PAC with well in excess of $300 million. So when he puts that money out on the street, that's huge. And primarily what it's being used for is get out the vote efforts in the last 72 hours. That means contacting voters, making sure that they have a plan to vote, that whether they need a ride or whatever. So you want those people out on election day. In the case of New Jersey and Virginia, up until Sunday was early vote.
Sean, why? I'm sorry, we're going to get sidetracked for a moment. Why does Trump have $300+ million in a super PAC when he's not running again? People have to write him these checks. They're writing checks to a man who can't run again. That is quite a thing. Help me understand it.
Well, it's actually a fantastic question because I can't think of a circumstance even close to this in modern history, right? So massive amounts of money, part of it is because they understand that his legacy is tied to being able to get things done in Congress and to maintain these majorities. I was part of this during the first term. We all saw the movie. We know how it ended. When you lose a majority, it turns from enacting your agenda and your policies to subpoenas, investigations, and impeachment. And I think that they are willing to spend what it takes to ensure that that doesn't happen again.
Sean, let's actually go to the races themselves. Virginia, we have the governor's seat, we have the AG seat. How are we looking?
So I look at it as a bottom up, which is normally not the case. And remember, Virginia tends to vote in threes. All three constitutional offices tend to go to one party. I don't think that that's inevitable, but it happened. It's happened most of at least the last 20, 30 years here in Virginia. I think Jason Miyares, because of this scandal regarding his opponent for Attorney General, Jay Jones, has a decent chance of pulling it over the finish line by 3 to 5 points. John Reed is the Republican nominee for lieutenant governor. I keep saying that this to me is this is kind of the generic ballot race. Neither candidate, the Republican or the Democrat, have a ton of money. They haven't done a ton of advertising. So they're kind of just whatever people going in to vote for. And then obviously top of the ticket, Abigail Spanberger, former Congresswoman, leads the current lieutenant governor, Winsome Earl Sears, by somewhere between 3 and 5, 6 points. Ironically, Jesse, and I know you're going to find this completely shocking, but the NAACP endorsed the white woman over the black Republican, who would have been the first person would think about this, would have ascended to the governorship in the seat of the Confederacy. But the NAACP is so committed to advancing, their official name is the National Association of the Advancement of Colored People, but they wanted to advance a white woman to be the first female governor. So look, I think it's Spanberger probably by an edge, but this is where the get out the vote effort. To your question about the money, this is it. To me, the ground game is worth a field goal. So if Winsome Earl Sears can get her people out, and Spanberger hasn't done a great job of inspiring minority voters in Hampton Roads and Southwest Virginia, she's got a shot at this, but it's going to come down to having a really strong ground game.
All right, Sean, give it to me right between the eyes. I find Winsome Sears appealing myself. Her story's cool. She just kind of seems like the kind of woman you want to sit and have a whiskey with on the porch somewhere. But that doesn't make her a good candidate. Marine. Has she been a good... Yeah, no, exactly right. Has she been a good candidate? Has she run a good race?
I'm with you. I like Winsome personally. I've did an event with her a couple weeks ago. She has not run the greatest campaign. She has not raised the money that she needs to. She has not put the operation together that she needs to. Her team, I think, in a lot of cases has let her down, but she's been vastly outspent. I've talked to a lot of perennial Virginia donors who say they were never even contacted. I don't think this has been the best effort put forward. Does that mean she's going to lose? No, but I will tell you that there's going to be a lot of blame to go around when if she does.
All right, let's go. I can't believe I'm going to say this. I've never said these words. Let's go to New Jersey. What's happening in New Jersey with the race there?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, let's go through New Jersey. Look, Jack Ciattarelli's running again. He lost by 3 points last time. President Trump kept New Jersey within 6 points in the presidential race. There's a decent shot. Ciattarelli, of all people, is poised to pull off this as the upset of the night. I think, as I mentioned with Virginia, probably in a little better position than where Winsome Earl Sears is right now. There's a decent shot that Ciattarelli wins tonight. There's a couple counties to keep an eye on, Passaic County and Bergen County. Both have been kind of where Democrats have done well in the past. President Trump kept them close, which, the key is going to be to see, does that coalition stay together 12 months after the last election? If you see Bergen County or Passaic County staying really close tomorrow night, I think that's a bad news for Mikey Sherrill, the Democratic nominee.
Sean, all right, New Jersey itself, in fact, Virginia, everywhere. I'm going to ask this as political as I possibly can. You know how soft and nice I am. Election integrity in the country. Have we made efforts there to overcome the dirty, cheating scumbags in the Democrat Party?
In some states, yes. Not everywhere, no. In fact, when you look, the Harmeet Dillon, the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, was on my show a couple weeks ago, and they were saying that they've asked the Department of Justice has asked for the voting rolls in all 50 states, and most states are saying no. Like, why? These are publicly available pieces of information. They don't want to admit that they haven't cleaned up their act, and that's a problem. So, you look at between the driver's licenses that we're giving to illegals, the failure of the states to want to clean them up, and it does concern me. I will say the other thing that concerns me, Jesse, is you look at Virginia here. We have 45 days of early voting. We voted middle of September, well before the J. Jones scandal broke, and all of the House of Delegates here in Virginia are up. Before 355,000 people voted before that scandal became known. So you didn't have a chance to know where your delegate stood on J. Jones. You didn't know how the rest of the ticket was going to vote on J. Jones saying that he wanted to kill his opponent and watch that opponent's child die in his mother's arms. You didn't know that. And I look at that and say, just to put that in context, New York only started voting early, 10 days ago. That's insane that Virginia's allowing this. So I think there's been some strides in election integrity, not enough.
All right, let's cross the river into New York City, a city I dearly love. In fact, I have to go up there again on business quite soon, and I would like it to not fall into the ocean. How are we looking?
Not good. Here's the one thing I'll tell you. Anybody that tells you that knows what's happening is lying to your face. The reason I say that is because polling is based on models. So the model is, here's someone's voting history. They're a committed Democrat. They voted in primaries. Here's somebody's voting history about Republican, or, they're an independent and they voted this way and they identify a certain way. If you think about what's going on in New York, you've got a terrorist sympathizing communist that has the Democrat line in the election, and then a scandal-plagued, washed up former governor who is, establishment Democrat running as an independent. And then you've got Curtis Sliwa running as the Republican. But most Republicans that I've talked to, at least in polling bears out, said they're not voting Republican because they don't want Mondambi to win. So how do you create a model that reflects that dynamic? I don't think it's possible. That being said, at least trend-wise, it looks like Mondami's to lose. I suspect that it's going to be a little bit closer than current polling shows it to be. And here's why I say that. Last time there was 755,000 people that voted in the mayoral election. Okay. You've already exceeded that in early voting in New York. They're predicting, potentially 2 million people. So again, going back to my initial thought, how do you model an outcome when you've got over double what traditionally is the case? It hasn't seen 2 million people vote in New York since like Dinkins Giuliani. So you've got more people than ever voting before. You've got a dynamic where it's not traditional by any stretch of the imagination. And so I think that Mondami pulls this thing out, but I do think that Cuomo is going to come in a lot closer than people gave him credit for in most of the polls.
What is this? It's not that I'm rooting against New York City. Yeah, no doubt. It's not that I'm rooting against New York City, as I just said, but nationally, I can't see Mamdani getting elected and taking a steaming dump on New York City as being anything that helps the Democrat Party, right? This has to hurt them, a party that's already hurting.
Look, I feel bad for the people that will have to live through the next 4 years. But politically speaking, this is an early Christmas gift to the Republican Party. Every Republican will make an issue of where does their opponent stand on Zohran Mondami? Is he the future of the Democratic Party? Do they believe in his policies? And he will become the poster boy for how crazy leftist. And again, it's not just the policies. This is what I find insane about this whole thing. Policies aside, they're nuts. Like, free this, free that. There's no such thing as free. It's somebody pays for it. And the idea of saying free healthcare, free childcare, free buses doesn't work. That free internet. But beyond that, New York City, the ground zero. And this guy is palling around with unindicted co-conspirators of 9/11, and no one sees this as a problem. I mean, it's not just the policies. It's that the idea that New York is seriously contemplating electing a guy to lead the city. What happens when they're attacked? When another threat comes their way. Is this the guy you want standing up for New York City? I don't think so.
Gosh. All right, Sean, sorry, I have one more. I can't let you go without asking you about Governor Gavin. Here he was.
You've said, as we've discussed, you are considering a run for president, and you've said you'll make a decision about whether to run for president after the midterms.
Yeah, I mean,
Governor, let me ask you, why do you want to be president?
I don't. I'm not suggesting I am. I'm saying, in response to someone talked about it, and I hate when nothing I dislike more than the politician that sits there and lies to you. And we all just sit there rolling our eyes going, give me a break.
He's considering it, Sean. He hasn't decided yet.
No. I mean, except I've kind of hired a bunch of people. I mean, look, there's no considering it. He's running. I know it. You know it. I gotta think it's a little ridiculous to say it that way, which is I hate people who say this because you know that that's the case. I mean, here's the reason I say that. Just so everyone knows. That's like saying, I really wanted to run the marathon this weekend. It's like you either do or you don't, right? And if you look at me, there's no way you were never going to run that marathon, right? Conversely, there are people that are, you look at Newsom, he does everything to get ready to run a race. You can tell that he really wants to do it, and to act like he's getting dragged into this is completely disingenuous.
Yeah, that's what they all do. Sean, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. All right. Arctic frost, government shutdown. Talk about that in a moment. Before we talk about that, let's talk about the crisis going on in the country, the crisis of testosterone. It's awful. We have estrogen in our water. You drink it all day. I drink it all day. We shower in it from all the birth control stuff in the water. So we've lost 50% of our testosterone in 50 years. The reason you're tired so much, the reason you're in a bad mood, it's because you have low testosterone. So what do? Well, they're starting a new clinic on every corner, right? Go down there, get a shot in your arm. Do you think that's what you need, is a shot in your arm? Chalk will change it with natural herbal supplements. 20% increase in your T levels in 90 days. I take a male vitality stack every single day. Chalk.com/JesseTV. We'll be back. I have good news and bad news. So, the government shutdown. The good news is welfare recipients are not getting paid with your money anymore. And that is good news. I saw a news clip over the weekend of one woman who had been on welfare for 3 decades. It is a disgrace that the government blood sucks the money out of your wallet and hands it to these lazy dirtballs, and has been doing so for 3 decades. That is bonkers. So that's the good news about the shutdown. The bad news is this, and this is a little PSA. I got an email last week, I think it was Friday. I got an email from a guy in the Navy. He, as of today, cannot put gas in his car. Don't forget about the service people in this country. Don't forget about the people in our armed forces. If you have somebody in your life, maybe a neighbor, maybe a friend, maybe a relative, wouldn't hurt to reach out and see if they need help. These people generally work very, very hard. They don't get paid very much anyway. They don't have thousands of dollars in a rainy day fund sitting in the bank somewhere. Your neighbor might need gas money. Maybe a meal, Red Lobster, something. Consider reaching out to them. That's the bad news. The other bit of bad news is this. Travel. TSA agents are part of this whole thing. I live in the Houston area. There are stories after stories after stories out there right now of wait times over 3 hours to get through security, and I'm told it gets worse from here. When does it end? That's what Trump said. I don't know where this is going. I don't know when it's ending. Grandma Vodka's out there slurring her way through starving children.
Children are my issue. That's why I'm in politics. That's my why, for the children. He's the worst president children in America have had in our own history, whether it's feeding them or whether it's safe environment for them to thrive, whether it's the economic security of their families, whether it's their health care, the cost of housing, and the rest. He is the worst president for children. There he is walking, the worst president for anybody. Any president in our history. So, but right now, with the public has to know and really understand, and I respect that they do, that when he took food out of the mouths of babies with this SNAP money, taking that money away and giving tax breaks to the richest people in America, he is not a reflection of American values. How can you possibly do that? How can you possibly do that and face America's families and saying, we're not feeding the children?
I have to be honest. First time I saw that video, I laughed out loud. That's why I'm in politics, for the children. I'm sure Grandma Vodka sits around stressing about the kids. She's in it for the kids, of course. We'll talk to Scott Perry about the shutdown. When does he think it's going to end? Arctic frost and more coming up in a moment. Now, I'm 44. I'm no longer 24. You remember when you were 24? You walk in a gas station, you'd get the hot Cheetos, and then you'd open up the bag, and you walk over to the nacho machine and you fill it up with cheese, and you can't eat like that anymore. Body doesn't feel right. It's terrible for you, but I still need my chips. So what do? How do you eat chips guilt-free? Vandy Crisps. Do you like potato chips? Would you like potato chips you can eat completely guilt-free? They're right there. Natural Vandy Crisps, not 8,000 ingredients, all this cancer-causing stuff. It's time to grow up, and they're delicious. My son, who's a junk food freak, says they're the best chips he's ever eaten in his life. Go to vandycrisps.com/JesseTV. We'll be back. Well, it's one thing for you or me to talk about Arctic frost. It's terrible. The FBI, what are they doing? Jack Smith, what did they do? But it's another thing to actually be a victim of all this. And our next guest is one of the great congressmen we have, and we don't have very many. And he was also a victim of this, Congressman Scott Perry of the great state of Pennsylvania. Congressman, for those who don't know, who haven't seen you on here before, the floor is yours. You've more than earned it. What did they do to you? What happened?
Well, Jesse, thanks for having me on. Arctic frost, so named for a variety of oranges. Just keep that in mind. So Arctic frost was an operation to persecute and prosecute anybody involved with President Trump that had any questions about the 2020 election. Now, of course, I have thousands of constituents that called in, that came to see me, that emailed, that wrote me, that had questions and demanded me as their representative speak for them and ask these questions, which I did. The U.S. government didn't go after those thousands of people, but if your name was Peter Navarro, if your name was Steve Bannon, if your name was Scott Perry, if your name was a handful of sundry senators, the Department of Justice came after us, and Christopher Wray authorized the operation, which means Merrick Garland knew about it. And of course, the intention was to make sure that nobody ever questioned the Democrat Party again or any election, and certainly to throw President Trump in jail and make sure he never became president again. It's political persecution on a scale of places like Cuba, the Soviet Union, the Communist Party of China, North Korea. That's what happened in the United States, and we just lived long enough to survive it. And of course, they all believed that President Trump wasn't going to come back, so they all believed they were going to get away with it. But of course, it's unraveling as we speak.
All right, let's focus on the unraveling, if you don't mind. I love that the information is getting out there. I love that evil actors are getting named, shamed, some getting fired. But That's not near enough. It's
No,
just
it
not
is
enough.
not
You
enough.
can't use the FBI like a political arm. That's how nations end. It's that serious. What happens from here to the bad guys? Anything?
Well, in my opinion, they need to be investigated by the FBI and the Department of Justice, assuming they did at least one thing, which is likely violate the civil rights of many individuals that were their political targets. They need to be prosecuted for those crimes, and if found guilty, they need to serve time for those crimes.
Congressman, the FBI, you're right, we kind of need the FBI to look into the crimes, but the FBI is the one that committed a lot of the crimes to begin with. I understand we have new and much better leadership at the top, but that's at the top. There's still so much rot in there. Can we trust the FBI? Because I'll be honest, I don't.
Well, I don't know that I'm ever going to fully trust the FBI, and unfortunately, I think the rot goes pretty deep. And like you said, you know, the FBI agent that walked up to our rental property on vacation with where me and my in-laws, my wife and my two girls were staying. He's been relieved of his job, as have others, but that's not nearly enough. And I think, you know, as they build the case and evidence becomes available, it is my hope that they will start a criminal investigation, not just firing these people, but a criminal investigation for, if nothing else, violation of civil rights, which comes with a pretty heavy federal penalty. And you're right, to a certain extent, to a great extent, we're depending on the FBI and the Department of Justice to do that, and only time will tell. And of course, you know, we can't be satisfied with the fact that many of us are relieved, myself, Jeff Clark, Peter Navarro, Bannon, you know, that we don't have the FBI and the Department of Justice trying to bankrupt us, destroy our reputation, and throw us in jail. That's not enough. I mean, we're glad that we're through that part, but we have to send a signal that this can never happen again. And the best way to do that is to make sure that the people that were involved in it get punished with real punishments, which doesn't mean just losing your job at the federal, you know, at some federal agency and then go getting a job at MSNBC or CNN. It means going behind bars for at least the length of the Trump presidency. After that, if there's a Democrat, they're likely to be pardoned because they're going to start this stuff all over again, likely. But these guys have to know there's going to be consequences, and I think that's the only real answer to it.
John Brennan's starting to look a lot like a man who's pretty nervous. I'm sure you've already seen it. Here he was getting a little heated over the weekend.
Why wouldn't you on the Hunter Biden? Why? Because and you misrepresented that. We never said it was disinformation. We said it was Russian influence operations, which is what they do. There's a big difference between influence operations. No, you don't know that. Yes, Comey knew. Comey knew.
The literature said it had all the hallmarks. All the hallmarks of.
He looks like a man who maybe had one too many beers and starting to think about jail.
Yeah, look, we all in public life know you don't put your finger in somebody's chest and you can have a dialogue about it. Now, obviously, he disagrees and dislikes the narrative of the individual that was questioning him. But, you know, we know a whole lot about John Brennan, and we, at a minimum, we know that he should have never had any control of classified information, should never even have had a security clearance, let alone been at the top of one of the nation's security agencies. And I think we're going to find out, obviously, that he was involved in this heavily. He was involved in this sedition and the subversion around the president of the United States and the president's agenda. It is not treason because we don't have an enemy, a so-called enemy that we're at war with, but it is seditious activity, and he can be prosecuted for it, and he should be.
Outstanding. All right, let's move on to something that is affecting a lot of people, the government shutdown.
Yeah.
I don't care about the 40 million welfare recipients. I think that's actually unbelievable that we have that many people on welfare. I do care about people in the military. I care about the airports starting to get shut down. Our airport here in Houston now has 3-hour wait times. So handicap this thing, Congressman. Where's it going? When's it ending?
Well, we've heard rumors that it might end after tomorrow's election because Schumer can save some face that he kept it going up until that point. And, they were able to win certain states and unfortunately, likely certain cities. I don't know if there's any truth to that. Jesse, look, I'm the one that held my nose and voted for this piece of garbage, right? Let's face it. This is Democrat policy and Democrat spending. But if we wanted to keep the government open and keep the America First agenda rolling, the only thing we could do really is to offer the Democrats their own bill that they had voted for, not just on, but voted for previously. Of course, being a Democrat and a leftist, that's never good enough because they hate the orange man. They hate what America stands for in many cases. And so, they just up the ante. And of course, what they're asking for is quite impossible and to give them relief on. We're not going back to provide insurance companies with your taxpayer dollars when they're making a 230% profit. And we're certainly not going back to providing illegals with your hard-earned money for their health care and everything else. We're just simply not going to do that. So again, this is their bill. I'm the one. Look, it's almost embarrassing, right? I voted for this thing when it's a continuation of Biden policy and spending with the belief that it was the only way we could get these Democrats to keep the government open. But as you heard Catherine Clark say, the misery and the suffering of the American people is their leverage. And Jesse, not only do they not care about the TSA agents and the uniformed service members not getting paid, they don't really care about those welfare recipients either.
So how can, honestly, it's more of just a political opinion. How does Schumer sell it as a win? Do Democrats have to win tomorrow, God forbid? How does he sell elections as a win?
Maybe he sells them as a win is that they wouldn't have won otherwise because the shutdown was front and center, and the voters in these states saw the difference between, Republicans and Democrats, and he was able to highlight that. Look, he's Chuck Schumer. He's going to try and pull some rabbit out of its hat that only the Democrat press is going to agree with. The rest of us are going to shake our heads because we're going to know it's about AOC, and he don't want to lose face or whatever. But, he's going to say that. They're going to echo it. We're going to shake our heads, and we're all going to move on knowing that, he's been taken over and consumed by the left wing of his party, and that, everybody went through this needless theater for absolutely no reason whatsoever except his reelection campaign.
Congressman, appreciate you, sir. Come back soon. Lighten the mood. Next. It's time to lighten the mood. And I'm not a fan of really any man, and I've warned you about that several times before too. No matter how much you like a politician, don't be a fan. Don't wave pom-poms. You can like them, cheer them on, but you always want to treat them all like rental cars, always. Use them to get where you want to go, and then dump them the second you feel like it. That's exactly how they'll all treat you. We've talked about this many times. So I'm not a fan of any of them. I have some I like. We just had Scott Perry on. I like him. If Scott Perry screwed us over tomorrow, screw him. But J.D. Vance, I'm not going to become a fan. I promise. I'm not going to pick up my J.D. Vance pom-poms, and at some point in time, he's going to do something that makes me angry, and I'm going to yell and scream about it as I do from time to time. But the guy is freaking growing on me. And you know why? It's one of the big, big reasons why. It's not because he's a Marine. I know you think I'm just probably being a Marine homer. It's not that. The ability to laugh at yourself, especially when you're in public life, it is so revealing about how seriously you take yourself. If you feel like you're super important, better than all of us, then you can't laugh at yourself. If you feel humbled, like you're a normal dude, you laugh at yourself. The left came up with some stupid meme, which I don't even understand it, where they kept putting long hair on J.D. Vance and made him look kind of weird. And he never shied away from it. He thought it was hilarious. He kept reposting all the memes, and for Halloween, he dressed up like it.
Happy Halloween, kids. And remember, say thank you.
It's hard not to like the guy. I'll see you tomorrow. I know you enjoyed that video because it was me. If you'd like to see more videos like that, just subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@JesseKellyDC. We'll keep giving it to you.